For startups hiring engineers and engineers looking to join them, this podcast is for you.
Hey, welcome to Your Next Tech Startup. I'm host Isabel Rasmussen, and today I have with me Derrick, the Director of Engineering at Counterpart. We are doing a unique episode in that we're going to kind of share the evaluation process of Counterpart when they send engineers a take-home assignment and what he and his team are looking for. Both Derrick and I agree that setting candidates up for success is the right way to run an interview process. You know, we're in this episode, we're kind of taking that almost to like the next level. Like I oftentimes will do that in a like written note to a candidate about like what to expect with follow-up interviews. Derrick, what are some ways that you've kind of tried to better set up candidates for success in the past?
Yeah. I think on our side, it really kind of starts with kind of taking the whole process into account, which is, when we send out, focusing kind of on a coding challenge. When we're sending out a coding challenge to somebody, we give a lot of information in there. Hey, here's the kind of template that we want you to build on. Here's the challenge that we want you to go on. So, we don't like to send people in blind, number one, building things just from scratch, because sometimes you're doing that. They're spending a lot more time trying to figure out what is it that you want. So just off the bat, that's what we start with, is giving them a nice template to start with, giving them a nice set of instructions. But really, one of the things that we say during that initial talk where we're saying, hey, we're about to send you into the coding challenge, we do bring up like, if you have questions, please reach out to me. You have my email, reach out to me with any questions that you have. And it's a small thing, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to see how is it that they are thinking about this process? How is it that what questions that they have, what is going to happen when that candidate runs into something, if we were to hire them, where they have a question, are they going to reach out? And so that's one of the ways that we're really trying to set this up. We're trying to set the stage and make it very open where it's, hey, if you have a question, this is where you can reach out. And it's kind of that feedback back and forth. That's kind of the first thing that we're looking at, because especially now where you have a lot of AI tools out there, the dynamics of a coding challenge, how you review it and what you expect are changing. I honestly kind of go into this now where every coding challenge I expect somebody used a little bit of AI on it. So I need to figure out a way on our hiring side to kind of get through that noise. How can I figure out, are they just really good at prompting and we're able to solve this coding challenge? Or do they actually know what they're doing and how can they solve problems? And it all starts with that first thing of just, if you have questions, let me know. Because if they are reaching out to me and they're starting that conversations, that's a great sign. Like the coding challenge nowadays is not just can you code, it's how do you work, and are you going to problem solve if you get stuck with something if we hire you? And that's really kind of where it all starts.
Yeah. And I think, just reiterating that point, that for you, a candidate receiving the take-home challenge and pinging you back is a very positive sign. And I think a lot of candidates are maybe nervous. They maybe don't want to show that they don't understand something. And so they don't reach out. But, you and probably a lot of other hiring managers at startups are thinking, I want engagement. I want this person to be asking questions. I will say that is, top 5 negative feedback things that I see is candidate didn't ask questions. They jumped into solving a problem without clarifying.
And I think that's what a lot of engineers, if you think of just the jobs that you have, that's where we make mistakes a lot of the times too, is did we jump into a problem without understanding it? And so I always like to tell people, the interview, and especially on the coding challenge, starts before you even touch a line of code. It's how are you reacting to it? Even in the call before we kick off, are you asking me questions of, okay, thank you for letting me know about this challenge. What are you expecting? Like, what are you looking at in these challenges? We're not trying to get any gotchas. We want to see how do you think, how do you operate? I've had people that have asked me that before and done really well in the challenge, because I'm not trying to get a gotcha or trick anybody. I'm just simply seeing, hey, are they going to ask me about it? Are they going to look for this additional information? Because to me, that's a great sign. That just means in the future, if I was to hire this person and we're in the middle of speccing something out and they don't understand something, they're going to be asking about it. Or if they are put on to build a certain project and get it over the line, are they going to be asking the questions of saying, okay, well, what do we expect from this? Am I expected to QA? Am I expected to get this to somebody? Those are the pieces that we really start looking at. And like I said, that all starts before you even write one single line of code on the challenge.
Yeah. And I've also heard that whole part of asking questions is kind of an evaluation part that people use as the type of question that's being asked. So I've heard hiring managers talk about if they can almost understand leveling of a candidate by the type of question they're asking. So that's again one of those things of over an engineer's career, I think they learn and develop the ability to ask better questions, and demonstrating that in an interview is important. And so if you kind of go into like lizard brain and you just think just got to code it out, get it done, and you forget to have this be a collaborative communication and all of that part of the interview process, then you're potentially not going to pass the interview, not because of anything having to do with your code, but you haven't really given the interviewer the opportunity to understand what it would be like to work with you.
Yeah. And you have to kind of also put yourself in the other side of the shoes. So, one thing I mentioned early on is, the prevalence of AI tools right now have changed the way that everybody works, whether it's reviewing code or actually building code. And so now I have to assume that every single challenge that I get is using AI in some way, shape, or form. So the challenge on our part is, how can I get a signal of this candidate, knowing that that is a possibility, a very, very high possibility that they are using AI in some way, shape, or form. And so, even something as simple as, I'm looking for habits that I would have picked up from a senior engineer over time. And what I mean by this is, so questions, number one, are they asking me questions before we leave that call? Are they following up with any questions or clarity, or just letting me know, hey guys, starting on this piece, if I have any questions, I'll let you know, looking to get done by this date. Even those are two things already right off the bat before you've even started that show me, hey, they've probably done this before. The other thing is, are they committing often? This is just a small challenge, but are they committing as they're going through? That shows me that this is somebody that knows that you shouldn't just dump everything in 2 commits and send it up for review, because that also allows me, when I'm reviewing your code, to see, okay, are they committing over time? How were they thinking about this? How were they changing things? And, I'm not expecting for a small coding challenge to have 100 commits, but, even if it's just as simple as like, hey, this is the initial commit. Hey, I just did these models. I just did these pieces. It allows me to kind of see, how did you build that challenge up? When did you come in and write tests if you wrote them in? So that's the other thing there, is thinking about what are the signals that we can look at. And really the other piece of this, which kind of comes, I'll say, during the next interview. So the way that we do our challenges is we send out the coding challenge, and then it's a synchronous review after the challenge is done with myself, if I'm on the hiring squad, and at least 2 other engineers. And again, our goal is to try and figure out, how does this person work? How can they integrate with us? So we're not just reviewing, hey, why did you do it this way? Which is part of the challenge. Why did you do it this way? Could we have done this? Could we add caching, etc.? Because those are just part of the answers we're trying to figure out. But now we're trying to go hypothetical. We're really digging into hypothetical on this challenge, which is saying, okay, this challenge was an MVP that somebody needed to build. It's successful. Congratulations. Now we need to get it ready for production. How do you do that? If you're leading the project, what would you do to productionize this? Because now I need to see you think. I need to see, if somebody came to you with this, would you know where the flaws are in the system? And there definitely are. This is a very quick coding challenge. We don't expect this to be production ready.
Right.
Those are the little things that, if you're thinking it from our point of view, this helps us get by the bias of, if somebody just threw this into ChatGPT, copy and pasted the code and did a couple of things, do they understand where those flaws are? And that's where, reps over time, seeing these things, if you kind of come in that mindset of, what does the person interviewing me look for to get past the bias of, did I just put it into ChatGPT? If you start thinking from that level and put yourself in that person's shoes, it'll make it much easier to kind of go forward, because we're really looking for, what are those human factors that can differentiate you and show the experience that you have, versus somebody that just has a baseline understanding that threw this into ChatGPT.
Yeah. Even pre-ChatGPT, everything that you're saying is still how interviews have been conducted. That even, when we were expecting people to have written 100% of the code, it's still, how would you scale this up? What would you do if this happened? And that is that kind of, if you have the interview process that is take-home challenge, then with a video conversation about the take-home challenge, those are the type of questions that are happening. And that is why sometimes someone can not pass the coding part of an interview, but they're able to think through all of those scenarios well enough that they still pass the interview. And then, as we had noted, that other people do incredibly well in the coding interview, but they don't demonstrate any ability to kind of bounce back ideas, think bigger picture, problem solve, and then they don't move forward in that interview process.
Yeah, and this is, kind of flipping to the other side of it. The other interesting thing about just the AI tools being so prevalent is, unfortunately, the baseline bar for what should the code look like is also a little higher, because we fully expect that, hey, if you're a little weaker in writing tests, okay, well, you've written your entire code, you should know, hey, I could probably go to ChatGPT and get some test cases written for this really quickly, and I can just expand on those and throw them in the challenge. So that's the thing. You have to realize that we're getting more challenges back that have tests. Now, whether the person wrote that themselves or not, like I said, that's the other piece that we're going to try and figure out. Do they understand it? But let's be honest, if you were on the job and you had a system that you were building that you didn't fully understand, that's exactly what you would do. So the bar from the coding challenge is just a little higher than what was expected before. And so, I'm not trying to discourage people from using these tools. Quite the opposite. You probably should be using them in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just trying to understand the challenge. Like, use it as a rubber ducky to bounce the ideas and make sure you're going correctly. But that should be taken into account to how you build things as well too. And so, like I said, it's this weird catch-22, but it is something that we have to think about from all kind of sides of it. So yeah, like I said, just to kind of bring it back, thinking about putting yourselves in the opposite side shoes, if they're trying to figure out this is AI or not, how can I show them? Am I communicating with them? Am I committing as much as possible? Am I being honest about my weak points and using AI to help me get better? So that way, at least from a coding challenge, it's there. But then also, do I know what it's doing? Can I explain what it's doing? And if I get the question of how do I productionize this, can I answer that? And those are the pieces where, if you can come into a lot of these challenges with that, you are showing me that you've run these before, you've hit these problems before, and you have the experience to join a team that is problem solving, like a lot of startups are. And you're not just waiting for like, what are my next marching orders? Because yeah, especially in smaller companies, you are not always going to get tickets that are perfectly written, exactly do this, this, and this, and just, code monkey it in. It's not that way. In a smaller one, you are expected to know how to problem solve. And when these situations arise, know how to communicate. And that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah. Anyone who's watching and interviewing with Counterpart, this is an amazing kind of behind the scenes. You can successfully interview with them, but so many startups approach interviewing like this. Derrick has done an amazing job of really sharing what the, hiring manager is looking for. So I'm hoping that, people really take this advice and are able to be more successful with interviews on your team, along with interviews that they have with other companies as well.
Honestly, it's my goal as well too. And yeah, love the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.